My name is Kieran, I'm 29, and for the last few years, I've tried really, really hard to believe my family still love me the way they used to. I'm not some tragic case, no criminal record, no bitter scandal, no dramatic fallout. Just a guy who drifted away from the family mold, who chose a quieter path while my parents and younger brother stayed wrapped up in their own perfect world. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe the fact that I didn't fit into their narrative anymore meant I stopped existing for them. But I wasn't prepared for what happened on my birthday. I'd like to say I saw it coming, but the truth is, I didn't. I still held on to some naive hope that they'd surprise me, or at the very least, send a thoughtful message. What I got instead was silence. Let me rewind. My birthday fell on a Saturday this year, July 6th. I made plans a month in advance. Nothing huge, just dinner at a nice restaurant in town followed by drinks at my apartment. I invited about a dozen people, a mix of co-workers, 2 friends from college who still lived nearby, and of course, my family. I texted my parents and my brother Ryan weeks ahead. I even reminded them again the Sunday before. My mom's reply was short. "We'll see, honey. Things are a bit hectic lately." But I didn't read too much into it. Hectic was normal for them. Ryan didn't reply at all. I should have taken the hint. The day arrived. I cleaned the place top to bottom, picked up cupcakes from the bakery my mom used to love, even got a few candles for the table, something my dad always teased me about, calling me sentimental to a fault. I checked the time constantly, expecting at any moment to hear a knock or get a call asking for the building code. But when the clock hit 6:30 p.m., my phone was still silent. My friends started arriving around 7. Sophia and Jordan brought wine. Mark had this stupid inflatable birthday crown he made me wear. We laughed, played music, told dumb stories. But every few minutes, I found myself glancing at the door. By 8, I cracked and called my mom. She picked up after a few rings. Her voice was cheerful, full of background noise and music. "Hey, sweetheart," she said like nothing was wrong. "Hey, are you guys still coming? Dinner started an hour ago." There was a pause. Then she sighed and said, "Kieran, we're busy right now, celebrating something that actually matters. Ryan got promoted. It's a huge step for him. He's been working so hard, and we didn't want to miss this moment." I blinked, staring at the ceiling like it would somehow help the words make more sense. "You didn't want to miss it, so you skipped my birthday." "Don't be dramatic," she said. "You're almost 30. Do we really need to throw you a party every year?" My jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for a party. I asked for you to show up." "Well," she said, suddenly defensive, "we can't be everywhere at once. You should be happy for your brother. He's worked his tail off for this, and we're proud of him. Try not to make this about yourself." I don't remember what I said after that. I hung up not long later, numb. I walked back into the room with a fake smile and a fresh beer. When the last of my friends left around midnight, I sat in the living room alone, the deflated crown still resting on the table next to a half-eaten tray of sliders. The next morning, I scrolled through the photos we'd taken and found one of me sitting on the couch surrounded by the 5 people who had actually shown up. It wasn't staged, wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Their smiles weren't forced. So I posted it. No passive-aggressive caption, no call-out, just, "Grateful for the family that chose me." I didn't expect a response. In fact, I muted the family group chat after posting it. But about 3 hours later, there was a loud knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw both my parents standing outside, furious. My dad's face was red. My mom looked like she had a prepared speech loaded and ready. I hesitated. My first instinct was to open it, to hear them out. But then I saw Ryan standing a few feet back by the elevator, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like he was watching a soap opera. I stood there behind the door, heart racing. I hadn't seen any of them show this much urgency in years. My phone buzzed on the table behind me. A text from my mom. "Open the door, Kieran. This is childish." I didn't. I watched through the peephole as my dad knocked again, harder this time. My mom yelled something I couldn't quite hear, then turned and gestured at Ryan, who just shrugged. Eventually, they left. But that was only the beginning. Later that day, I got an email from my dad. Long, dramatic, full of talk about family loyalty and not airing private matters online. He said the post was a slap in the face after everything they'd done for me. Then he had the nerve to mention a time they'd helped me pay rent, once, 2 years ago, when I lost my job in the pandemic. I'd paid them back within 4 months. But now it was being used like a favor I could never repay. The group chat lit up with messages. Ryan said I was jealous and attention-seeking. My aunt chimed in. "Couldn't you have just let your brother have his moment?" My cousin even added a passive comment about how some people never grow up, and not one of them stopped to think. Why was I celebrating with friends instead of family in the first place? The worst part? I started to believe them. For a while, I sat in my apartment that evening and went over the conversation in my head 100 times. Was I being petty? Immature? Should I have just let it go? But then I remembered the look on my mom's face when she said it. Something that actually matters. Like my birthday, I didn't matter at all. That was the moment something in me shifted. I started going back through old emails, bank records, shared expenses, times I'd loaned money to Ryan when he couldn't make rent after dropping out of school the first time. The birthday gifts I'd bought for my parents, every Christmas, every year, often more expensive than I could afford. The messages they never replied to. The photos I wasn't in. The trips they didn't invite me on, always with an excuse. And then I found something. Something I hadn't looked at in years. The foundation paperwork. I hadn't thought about it since college. But it was still active, still in my name. And they clearly had no idea. That's when the real plan began to form. I stayed up most of that night, the glow of my laptop screen casting long shadows across the room while my thoughts darted between memories and plans. I hadn't touched the family foundation paperwork in nearly 8 years. It was something my grandfather had set up when he was still alive, a small nonprofit meant to support scholarships, community projects, things like that. He'd trusted me with it, back when I was the one in the family who actually showed up for Sunday dinners, helped with errands, listened without judgment. Back when I mattered. After his passing, no one really paid attention to it. My parents talked about shutting it down a few times, but I kept it going with small grants and quiet contributions. I didn't have much, but I believed in it. I didn't tell anyone I was the one still funding it. Maybe part of me hoped that if I just kept doing the right thing, they'd notice. They never did. What they did do, however, was start attaching their names to the foundation's events, banquets, donation drives, school sponsorships. I remember seeing photos on my mom's Facebook of her posing next to oversized checks I'd signed. At the time, I let it go. I told myself, if it helps people, it doesn't matter who gets the credit. But after that phone call on my birthday, something inside me finally broke. Not in a loud, dramatic way. More like a door quietly closing for good. I went through the documents carefully. As the sole legal owner and trustee, I had full authority. That meant every public use of the foundation's name required my signature, none of which I'd been giving. I also noticed something else, a pending transaction. A big one. A $30,000 allocation request, labeled as sponsorship for Ryan's new startup. I stared at the screen for a long time. They hadn't even asked me. They were using the foundation like it was their personal bank. My grandfather would have lost his mind if he knew. This wasn't about family anymore. This was theft, entitlement, and manipulation, dressed up in suits and champagne toasts. So I rejected the request. Then I locked the account, froze all spending, flagged the most recent transactions for review. And while I was at it, I reached out to the accountant my grandfather had once worked with, an older man named Leonard who still remembered me as the only honest one in that whole pack. I told him what had happened. I asked him to do a quiet audit. Within 24 hours, he found discrepancies. Thousands of dollars misused for personal expenses, all under the guise of community development. Vacations, home repairs, even a catered engagement party for Ryan, booked under a youth outreach banquet. I sat there reading through every line item, my hands shaking, not from rage, but from something colder. Clarity. It wasn't just my birthday they didn't care about. It was me. My role in this family was never about love or respect. It was about what I could give. So I stopped giving. I drafted a letter to the board, all appointed by me, thankfully, outlining the misuse of funds and suspending all family-affiliated events pending investigation. I restructured the foundation's mission to include an external oversight committee, one that didn't include a single relative. And for the first time in years, I added my own name back onto the website. Not out of ego. Just as a reminder to myself, I built this. I kept it alive. The morning after I submitted the paperwork, my door buzzed. It was my mother. She looked more annoyed than angry, arms crossed, dressed like she had come from church or brunch, someplace public where appearances mattered. "Kieran," she said the moment I opened the door, "we need to talk." Behind her stood my dad, stony-faced, and Ryan, smirking like he was watching a sitcom unfold. I stepped aside and let them in, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted them to see just how calm I was. The apartment was clean, quiet, nothing dramatic, no shouting match waiting to happen. "You made a very poor decision," my dad said the moment the door shut. My mom added, "Posting that photo online? Implying we don't care? That was cruel." Ryan didn't say anything, just leaned against the wall with that smug little half grin, like he knew he'd still come out on top. I sat down on the arm of the couch and looked at all three of them. "You missed my birthday," I said. "That's not fair," my mom replied instantly. "We told you. We were at Ryan's promotion dinner. Right?" I said, nodding slowly. Something that actually mattered. They paused. My dad shifted his weight. Ryan shrugged. "It wasn't personal," my mom continued. "We just thought." "You thought wrong," I interrupted. My voice was low. "Even. You've been using the foundation to fund your events and lifestyle. Without permission. You've been taking money meant for scholarships and putting it toward parties and startups. That is personal. My dad bristled. Now hold on, we've always. No, I said, standing up. You haven't always. I have. I've always been the one funding it. I've been the one honoring Grandpa's legacy. You just put your names on the banners. Ryan rolled his eyes. So what? Now you're going to make some kind of power play over a few $1,000s. I turned to him, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small in his presence. I already did, I said. The foundation is no longer under your access. All funds are frozen pending audit. Any sponsorships tied to your name have been revoked. His smirk vanished. You've got to be kidding. My mom stepped forward, her voice laced with that old tone she used when I was a kid and stayed out too late. Kieran, this isn't how families handle things. You don't just shut everyone out. I looked at her for a long time. That's exactly what you did to me. The room went still. The weight of everything we hadn't said over the years pressed in from every corner. My dad opened his mouth to respond, but then my phone buzzed on the table. It was Leonard. He'd found something else. Something big. I picked it up, read the message, and felt my stomach twist. Not with dread, but with something darker. I looked up at them and said, "You might want to sit down for this." And that's when everything started unraveling. They didn't sit. Instead, my dad clenched his jaw and muttered, "We don't have time for games, Kieran." I held up my phone anyway. "Then I guess you don't have time to explain why there's a $15,000 payment labeled as a consulting fee to a company registered under Ryan's name. One that's supposedly managing event logistics for the foundation." Ryan's eyes flicked toward my phone, and for the first time since they barged in, he looked genuinely uneasy. "Wait, what are you talking about?" he asked, trying to play it off. That was approved by the board, wasn't it?" "No, it wasn't," I said, my voice steady. "Because there's no record of any board vote. And that company? It's a shell. No staff, no business license, just your name on a P.O. box and a bank account." My mom stepped in like she always did, always had, to shield him. "That's ridiculous. Ryan doesn't need to scam the foundation. He helps it." I turned to her. "When exactly?" She blinked. I continued. "He's never been to a board meeting. Never submitted a project report. Never shown up to a single one of our charity outreach events. But you're telling me he deserved 15 grand from a scholarship fund while high school students were waiting on application decisions." Ryan scoffed. "It's not a scam. I fronted costs for the gala we did last spring, and that was my reimbursement. You think all that catering and audio came out of nowhere?" I stared at him. "Funny, because the venue invoice and vendor fees were already covered. I paid them directly. You know how I know? I had Leonard cross-reference everything." He didn't respond. "My parents did, though." "Kieran," my dad growled, taking a step closer. "You need to stop this crusade right now before you destroy this family." I looked up at him. This man who used to carry me on his shoulders, who taught me how to change a tire, and who once told me, "Family always protects its own." But now that I had something they wanted, something I'd built, his voice sounded less like a father's and more like a threat. "I'm not destroying anything," I said. "I'm just refusing to keep patching up the cracks so everyone else can pretend we're whole." My mom's eyes were glassy now. She clutched her purse tightly against her chest. "We made sacrifices for you, Kieran. When you lost your job, we didn't hesitate to help. And this is how you repay us? By airing dirty laundry." That was the moment it really hit me. They still thought I owed them. "Help?" I asked quietly. "You mean the $800 loan I repaid with interest? The one you've brought up every year since?" My dad cut in sharply. "Don't twist this. You know what your brother has been through. We did what we had to do to help him get back on his feet. By stealing from a nonprofit?" There was a pause. A long one. The kind that stretches because everyone's too afraid to admit they've been caught. "I didn't steal," Ryan muttered. "I just moved some funds around." I laughed under my breath. "You mean embezzlement?" The word landed like a stone on glass. Ryan flinched. My mom went pale. My dad looked like he wanted to throw something. I stepped back and folded my arms. "You're lucky I'm not going to the authorities. Not yet. But you're done. All of you. Your names are coming off the gala committee. Off the donor recognition board. Off every flyer you've plastered your faces on while I did the actual work." "You can't do that," my mom said in disbelief. "I can," I replied. "And I already did." I opened the laptop on my dining table and turned it toward them. The foundation website was up. Right at the top was a new statement from the director, me. It read, "In light of recent internal discoveries, we are taking immediate steps to ensure transparency and ethical standards moving forward. Effective today, all previously affiliated family members have been removed from official roles and will no longer represent the foundation in any capacity. We thank the public for their continued trust as we return to the original mission my grandfather envisioned: service, not self-interest. There were photos too, of real volunteers, real events. None of them included my parents or my brother. Ryan's mouth opened and closed like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. "We were going to announce your brother's engagement at the next banquet," my mom said quietly, like she still believed this would sway me. I raised an eyebrow. "You mean the banquet I was still funding? The one where he was going to propose with the ring he bought using a reimbursement from the scholarship grant?" Silence. I looked at all three of them and finally said the words I'd been holding in for years. "I'm done being useful to you. I'm done being the quiet one who keeps the peace. If you want to fix this, it won't be on my dime. Or in my name." I walked over and opened the door. No one moved. So I stood there and waited. Eventually, my mom turned first. Her hand lingered on the edge of the doorframe, like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. She walked out. My dad followed, muttering something under his breath. Ryan was the last to go. He hesitated, then leaned in and whispered, "You're going to regret this." I looked him dead in the eyes and replied, "No, Ryan. You are." The door closed behind them with a final, echoing click. But just as I exhaled, relieved, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Leonard. "You should see this. Check the attachment. It's bigger than we thought." I opened it. My jaw dropped. And that's when I realized this mess went deeper than I ever imagined. I stared at Leonard's message for a long time before opening the attachment. My heart was already pounding from the confrontation with my parents and Ryan. But this was something else. The PDF loaded slowly, like the universe wanted to delay the inevitable. And there it was, 3 years of bank transfers, vendor invoices, and travel reimbursements, all approved through foundation funds. But not by me. Somehow, Ryan had faked approval signatures. The last page? A full itinerary for a 10-day luxury trip to the Amalfi Coast last summer. The one where my parents posted photos with captions like, "Long overdue break after so much hard work." They had billed the foundation $22,000 for a strategic donor retreat. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. All those weekends I spent working on scholarship applications, vetting community grant proposals, writing heartfelt thank you emails to donors, and they were sipping wine in Positano, pretending to be the faces of generosity. The next morning, I met Leonard in person. We sat in his office, a small, book-lined room with a faint smell of old coffee and fresh ink. He handed me a printed copy of the full audit report. Everything was organized, flagged, annotated. "I knew your grandfather well," he said, folding his hands. "He always said you were the only one in the family who listened, who paid attention. I think he'd be proud of how you're handling this." I nodded slowly. "I don't want to destroy them," I said. "I just wanted to stop. All of it. The lies, the manipulation, the way they act like I'm nothing until they need something." Leonard leaned back. "Then you need to make this public. Quietly. Legally. But publicly. Or they'll do it again." So I did. First, I scheduled an emergency meeting with the foundation board and presented the audit. Most of them were shocked. A few, mostly older donors close to my parents, tried to downplay the severity. But once I laid out the fake consulting company, the vacation charges, the forged digital signatures, and the conflicting tax documents, there was no room for denial. We issued an official press statement 2 days later. An internal audit of the Dalton Family Foundation has revealed financial misconduct by former honorary affiliates. These individuals have been permanently removed from all roles within the organization. Full cooperation has been extended to legal and financial authorities to ensure compliance and restitution. Then I hired a lawyer. Not to sue yet, but to issue demand letters. One to my parents. One to Ryan. Each one outlining the funds they had misappropriated, with a 30-day deadline to repay or face legal consequences. I didn't expect them to comply, but I underestimated how much my mother valued her public image. 3 days after the letters were delivered, she called me. "Kieran," she said, her voice trembling, "you don't understand what this will do to us." I stayed quiet. She continued, "People are asking questions. The country club revoked your father's guest pass. Your aunt called. She said her church saw the press release." I finally spoke. "Good. Maybe now they'll see me as something other than a bank account with a pulse." "This is your family," she hissed. "We gave you everything. We raised you." I cut her off. "No, Mom. You raised Ryan. You tolerated me. You let me believe I was loved as long as I didn't ask for anything. The second I needed support, I became a burden. But when you needed money, suddenly I was a cherished son again." She was quiet. I waited. Then she whispered, "We'll pay it back. Full amount. No installments. 30 days, I replied. "Or I file fraud charges." I hung up. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty about it. Ryan didn't call. He texted, once, a pathetic, "You really think this will fix anything?" I didn't reply. Instead, I got to work. Real work. We restructured the foundation from the ground up. New board members, all vetted. I added 3 scholarship programs in my grandfather's name. I met with the students we helped. I shook their hands, heard their stories. One of them, a shy kid named Mateo, cried when he told me he'd be the first in his family to go to college. That moment stuck with me more than any fake compliment my mother ever gave. As for my family, they went silent. At first, then the apologies trickled in. My aunt emailed, saying she had no idea and always thought you were such a sweet boy. My dad sent a short letter, handwritten, no less, saying he regretted how things turned out. No actual apology, of course. Just regret about the outcome. And then there was my mom. She showed up again, 2 weeks after the deadline. I heard the knock, looked through the peephole, and considered pretending I wasn't home. But curiosity got the better of me. She stood there in a beige coat, clutching an envelope. "I brought a check," she said before I could speak. I opened the door, but didn't move aside. She handed it over. It was for the full amount, $37, for 84.65. I nodded. "Thank you. I just want us to go back to how things were," she said, voice tight. I looked her dead in the eye. "We can't. Because now I know who you are when no one's watching." Tears welled in her eyes. Real or performative, I couldn't tell anymore. "I miss my son," she whispered. I smiled sadly. "He was always here. You just didn't look." Then I closed the door. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from Ryan. No return address. It was 1 page. All it said was, "I hope one day you realize how much damage you've done." I tore it in half without reading it twice. Because here's the truth, I didn't destroy my family. I revealed what was already broken. And I chose not to carry the weight of their silence anymore. In the months that followed, I stopped checking their social media. I stopped waiting for an invitation, or a call, or even acknowledgement. I didn't need it. I had something better now. A group of friends who showed up every year. Students whose lives changed because someone believed in them. A community that saw me not as a background character in someone else's success story, but as the author of my own. I celebrated my next birthday quietly. No grand event. Just Sophia, Jordan, Mark, and a few others gathered in my living room, laughing over wine and cake. And as I looked around the room, I realized I didn't lose a family. I built one.